Dog attack tragedy. A 13-week-old baby girl was killed in a horrifying dog attack just one day before a major milestone. And what happened next stunned everyone. Now we take a deeper look and break down this entire story on the AI podcast.
Welcome to today's deep dive. Now, right up front, I need to acknowledge that today's source material is heavy. It's really heartbreaking stuff.
Yeah, it is. It's an incredibly difficult read.
It really is. We're looking at excerpts from reporting on the tragic loss and legacy of Maggie-May Ann Moody. She was a 13-week-old baby who was killed in a dog attack.
Right.
And the mission for this deep dive is to kind of explore how a singular, just unimaginable local tragedy ripples outward, moving from profound personal grief to really complex legal proceedings, and then eventually into this massive societal debate about public safety. Think of this incident like a stone dropped into a quiet pond. The initial splash is the immediate devastating loss of a child, but the ripples, they extend outward. So first they hit the legal system with a complex investigation, and then they wash over society as a whole with these reignited debates on safety.
That is a really apt way to put it. And, what's fascinating here is how the source material perfectly captures that duality. Yeah, the text constantly contrasts this intensely personal, highly emotional language from a grieving family with the clinical procedural language of an ongoing police investigation. It's jarring.
It is so jarring. But before we get into the legal consequences or the societal debates, I feel like this deep dive really has to anchor itself in the human reality of this tragedy.
Absolutely. We can't lose sight of that.
Right. So looking at the timeline from the sources, the attack happened on April 9th inside a house in Dormanstown, that's near Redcar in England.
Yeah.
And as you said, Maggie-May was just 13 weeks old.
Just a tiny baby.
Yeah. And an inquest opened at Teesside Coroner's Court, and they revealed she was tragically just one single day away from her 3-month milestone.
Wow. One day. That detail alone, it just emphasizes the absolute vulnerability here.
Exactly. And her family releases tribute, and it's just so beautiful and painful to read. They said she brought, quote, sunshine to even the rainiest of days.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And that she was filled with love, character, and her own little spark. But okay, let's unpack this for a second, because there's one line in the tribute that really caught my attention.
Which one?
They wrote that she, quote, already knew what she liked and made sure we all knew what she didn't.
Right. Yeah, I remember that line.
And I think that's so important because you know how news reports usually are, right? They can be so dry. But a specific detail like that, a 13-week-old, already showing her preferences, making demands, it stops her from just becoming a statistic.
Yeah, she feels like a fully realized person.
Exactly. And I'm curious, from your perspective, how does this specific type of public tribute with these little personal details actually shape how a community processes an event like this?
Well, it's profound, really. If you look at the family's language, they mention being robbed of a lifetime.
Yeah, such a powerful phrase.
It is a profound statement of grief, acknowledging the sheer injustice of it all. But then they consciously pivot. They talk about carrying her memory in every smile, every moment of love.
Right, they focus on the love.
Exactly. And doing that, it anchors the local community's response in profound empathy and shared mourning. It provides a human center to a story that honestly could otherwise be completely consumed by outrage.
Which makes sense. People are angry when something like this happens.
They are, but the family is guiding the community to remember her life, not just the horrific way it ended.
That's incredibly gracious of them, especially considering the circumstances. But as we mentioned, the ripples move outward. And from that pure, unfillable space of the family's grief, the narrative in the reporting shifts. It shifts to how the justice system has to step in and process this tragedy.
Right. The emotional gives way to the procedural. It has to.
It does. So let's get into the details of the investigation. The attack involved what the source describes as a pocket bully type dog. And police launched a major investigation, which actually resulted in 3 arrests. They arrested a 45-year-old man, a 31-year-old woman, and a 36-year-old man.
3 different adults.
Yes, 3. And all of them were arrested on suspicion of being in charge of a dangerously out-of-control dog resulting in death. And they were all released on conditional bail.
And there was an additional charge for the woman, right?
Yes. Crucially, the 31-year-old woman was also arrested on suspicion of child neglect. But, okay, here's where it gets really interesting and honestly a bit baffling. The police clarified that none of these arrested individuals are connected to Maggie-May's family.
Right. That is a massive detail.
I mean, it's like this devastating puzzle. The tragic loss happened entirely within the family's sphere, but the potential legal accountability, that lies completely outside of it.
Yeah.
With 3 completely unrelated adults.
Yeah, and this raises an important question about how the law actually operates in these chaotic situations because, the fact that 3 different adults are suspected of being, and the phrasing here is key, in charge of the dog.
Right, not owners.
Exactly. The law isn't just looking for whose name is on the adoption papers. It's looking at the immediate environment. Combining that with the specific addition of a child neglect suspicion for the woman, it suggests a highly complex environment.
What do you mean by that?
Well, it suggests a complicated chain of custody regarding the animal that authorities are actively trying to untangle. Like, who had physical control in that specific moment? Who opened a door? Who dropped a leash?
Oh, I see. So it's not just a blanket, you own the dog, you're at fault.
Mm-hmm.
It's hyper-specific to the moments leading up to the tragedy.
Exactly. They are looking at the immediate duty of care. And the child neglect charge for the 31-year-old woman implies she had a specific responsibility for the child's environment that she allegedly failed to uphold.
Even though she wasn't family.
Right. Duty of care doesn't just mean biological parents. If you are an adult in a home and you take on the responsibility of a shared space with a child, you have a legal duty.
Wow. So the authorities are trying to figure out who failed the child in that specific moment out of these 3 strangers.
Precisely. And that's why you see conditional bail. They're gathering evidence, timeline data, trying to piece together a very fractured reality.
It really highlights how messy the reality of these situations is compared to the clean, emotional narrative of a family's tribute. The law has to deal with the mess.
It does. And it's a slow, methodical process.
Which leads us to the final ripple. The intricate legal investigation of these 3 unconnected adults, it naturally broadens the scope, right? We go from a localized incident in Dormanstown to a national conversation.
It inevitably does.
The source explicitly notes that this heartbreaking case has, quote, reignited concerns about dangerous dog ownership and safety around young children.
Yeah, that's a societal ripple.
So what does this all mean? How does a single incident involving a specific pocket bully-type dog and a few individuals instantly become a catalyst for a wider societal debate?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, society often relies on tragedy to force a reevaluation of the status quo.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Right. And the text here highlights an inherent tension. You have the private sphere, private pet ownership, clashing directly with public safety, specifically the safety of vulnerable populations like young children.
I think that's something that really resonates.
Yeah.
Because you, listening to this, you might wonder why you should care about a localized event in a town you've maybe never heard of.
Mm-hmm.
But it exposes the fragile nature of this unspoken social contract we all rely on. I mean, we all share communities with neighbors, with pets, with children, and we operate under this assumption of mutual safety.
We assume the person walking past us with the dog has control.
Right. We assume the house next door is a safe environment. And in this case, that assumption was violently shattered.
It was. When a tragedy like this happens inside a home, a place that is supposed to be a sanctuary, it breaks that trust. The public starts asking, wait, are the current laws enough?
Especially regarding specific breeds.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, the source is reporting on the reignited debate, and we are just looking at the source. We aren't taking a side on the politics of dog breeds here.
Right. We're just analyzing why the debate sparks. And it sparks because people feel that the social contract has failed. They want to know how to prevent that specific type of failure from ever happening again.
They want the illusion of safety back. Or, well, actual safety back.
Exactly. The debate is society's way of trying to mend the net after someone has already fallen through it.
That is it. That's a heavy thought.
Yeah.
It really shows the journey we've taken in this deep dive. I mean, we moved from the heartbreaking loss of a vibrant 13-week-old girl, someone who brought sunshine to her family,
Mm-hmm.
and then through this really complex web of legal accountability involving 3 totally unconnected adults and a pocket bully-type dog.
Mm.
And finally, out to the reignited societal debate over public safety and trust.
It is a massive journey from one single point of tragedy.
It really is.
Yeah.
Do you have any final thoughts as we wrap this up?
I do, actually. It goes back to the family's words. They explicitly stated they were robbed of a lifetime with Maggie-May. And as society continues to debate dangerous dog ownership and child safety, you really have to ask yourself a difficult question.
What's that?
When a fatal tragedy is caused by an animal, How does the legal system ultimately define and assign justice so that a grieving family might find some semblance of closure, especially when you know that a stolen lifetime can never, ever be restored?
Well, yeah, that is the impossible question at the center of all this.
Yeah.
The legal system can assign blame, but it can't give them back what they lost.
No, it can't.
Well, thank you for listening and joining us on this heavy, but I think really important deep dive into these sources. Just a reminder to stay curious and please stay compassionate.
Okay, one question for you. Could this fatal attack have been prevented through better supervision, training, or regulations? And what lessons can other families learn to protect young children from similar dangers? Don't forget to comment it. Thanks.